All right, everybody. So we're going to be doing another podcast today. We're going to do another Nintendudez podcast. I don't know why I said that twice, but who's joining me today?
Mike.
And Travis.
Yeah, we're now pros at naming our names. Anyway, so we're
50
going
episodes
to be
in, and we got it.
Yay.
just 51, roughly, something like that.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know how many we scrapped, but anyway, we're going to be doing another podcast, and this one is just going to be on the topic of DLC. If you don't know what DLC is because you've been living under a rock, it stands for downloadable content, and we differ on this a lot. And I'm going to have Mike start this podcast off because he was one of the people who was really pushing for the DLC podcast. So, Mike, what are you saying about DLC?
Well, I was pushing for it because I think it's fun when we disagree. I always
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because it depends, and I'm sure you're gonna have plenty of good examples of bad DLC. Yeah. But I think if done correctly, I love DLC because two game franchises, I guess, that do it really well are Fallout and Elder Scrolls. Because in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which was one of my favorite games, they added $15 DLC called Shivering Isles, which was an extra 6 hours of story, and it was put in like a year after the game came out, and I loved it. And so I guess you can make the argument like, yeah, they could have put in the game originally, but I think it came out so much later because I don't think it wasn't necessarily ready, I guess. I don't know because I'm not a part of the company, so I can't say for sure. But I don't think it must have been like an idea they had later or something. They weren't sure how to do it, so they wanted to take extra time. But I loved it. And it wasn't really like a main part of the story. It was sort of an add-on, so not playing it doesn't take away from the game at all. You can still finish the game from start to finish and level up. It just sort of adds an extra little side quest that's about 6 hours. So I think that's really, really cool. And then Fallout did it another way that I thought was really cool, because Fallout is kind of like a survival type game, but the DLC were all different types of games. And so I forgot what it was called. I think it was Dead Money or I don't remember. It's going to bother me. But it was sort of like a horror-themed little Fallout twist where you're sort of in a dark world and you lose all of your ammunition. So now all of a sudden you're like fighting to survive with every piece of ammo. Because in normal Fallout, you can get like thousands of bullets and it's like you just dominate. So this was cool because like it puts you, it's like Resident Evil all of a sudden, where like now you have no bullets, no guns, and you're fighting to survive. And so it's cool because it's like you have the main game, but the DLC was sort of their different ideas that like didn't really fit into the game, so they just sort of added on as extra content. Now, I will say some games did it bad. I look at games like Smash Bros. Did it fine, but it was way too expensive. Like $50 to get all the other characters and maps is ridiculous. I didn't like that.
I agree.
But like, what's another game that did it bad? I think like Call of Duty in the same way. Like, oh, we have a new map to play. Give us $10. It's like, yeah, that's not cool. And Battlefront, is the worst. But those are also from companies that are trying to mooch for money. So it's hard to say.
Just as a little bit of a disclaimer, he's like, if I don't know when this video is going to release, he's meaning the Star Wars Battlefront that came out for the PS4, not the Battlefront 2 if this video is released after that.
Right, yeah, the original. Because I don't know how bad Battlefront 2 will be. It looks like it'll be better. The original Battlefront was
because
awful.
If you're not paying for it, I don't think it's going to be bad.
Right.
No. Well, that's the other thing, too, is like free DLC doesn't bother me. I know it can be a bit of a nuisance if you have to download extra stuff, but they're not charging me, so I'm not going to complain too much.
Right.
But if you're charging me to play on a map, that annoys me, and I don't do that to me. Or if you're going to do it, make it like $1. Like, don't make me pay $10 to play on a new map. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So as a counterpoint, though, to your Fallout thing, when you see, again, I have heard that Fallout 4's DLC was very, very good, but at what cost? Because Fallout 4's main game was not nearly that good, at least from what I've seen review-wise, and from what I heard from people playing the games. Like, I have heard Fallout 4's like main story was not the best. Like compared to the standards that they would hold Fallout up to, it just came up short in a lot of different ways, which was fine with people throwing in maybe some other ideas that didn't fit into the main story, into the actual DLC itself. But at the same time, that makes the main game stink. Like, basically, you're paying for... I'm not saying this is how it is for all games, because I'm with you. If DLC is done right, I think it's a really cool addition to have. But when you're seeing something like that, you're paying, what, like $60 for Fallout? Also, by the way, especially one of the things that I think this is a different... kind of something that we need to touch on. I don't understand why physical copies of the game are the same as digital copies of the game. I think that's like weird in my head. I don't think that should be true. But at the same time, you're basically paying $60 for a way to download this DLC on there so you can play the other stuff that's actually better. So your main story suffers when that happens. So it might have been nice. Like, I don't know. I've never played the Fallout 4 DLC, but I don't think that it should be I don't think that it should suffer or make the main game suffer as a result of it.
I guess it depends how you look at it. Like, I can't say for Fallout 4 because I never played that DLC. But,
yeah,
because I was more thinking of like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. And I don't think it made the main story suffer because it was just extra side missions. And that's kind of what Elder Scrolls was like too. Where like in Fallout 3, your whole thing is like you're trying to find your dad and like purify the land so you can start growing like grass again. Because it's a wasteland now because of the nuclear bomb and whatever. But like one of the DLCs was you get abducted by aliens. And you have to try to escape a UFO. And it's like, I don't think that affects the main story because it's completely unrelated. But it's just a little extra thing that you can do. And there was like another one where you like go to Alaska for a little bit. Or like New Vegas had one where you go to like Zion Valley in Arizona. So it's cool because it lets you explore more places. But it doesn't take away from the main story. I feel like those ones add on. Because then you can get like new exclusive weapons and stuff to that DLC. And then take it to the main story. Or like get new companions and stuff. So I think it adds on. I don't think it makes it suffer.
Well, are the weapons overpowered though?
No. Well,
if the weapons are if the weapons are overpowered, that's another thing that I don't like. I was gonna say this also because I'm gonna bring in this point because then we can because Travis can talk about this because he definitely is a huge player of this game. In games like Fire Emblem Fates and Mario Kart 8, I think the
that's
DLC's
the one
done.
I've played. Yeah.
Yes, I was just like
I'm like Fire Emblem Fates. You're wrong, kid.
Well, okay, so what I'm saying about that is, so I guess in Fire Emblem Fates situation, they had a couple of free DLC things, giving a taste of some DLC classes and whatnot, but you would have to, like, again, that's just a taste of what is out there for the DLC, and I kind of like that, giving you a little sample of if you want to do more with it. So different subclasses in Fire Emblem that you can use, like you can use the Witch class, the Ballistician class, the other classes that you can try, or Dreadfighter class as well, so you can go in there. And also, if you get the different paths on your actual Fire Emblem Fates game itself, you can get some of the DLC automatically on there. You can get the Dark Flyer class and the Dreadfighter class, whatever. I think that that's done right. And so when talking about Mario Kart 8, you get more characters and carts and whatnot and more tracks that are not, and again, it doesn't make you overpowered by any means.
Yeah.
But it'll still allow you to be at that point where it'll feel like an extension of the game itself. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think DLC should really do. My issue is when it starts going into an example of, like, in my mind, like Fire Emblem Echoes, where it seems kind of shady about the DLC that's already there on day one, where it's like, it seems like they left out parts of the game, clearly, just to sell separately, to try to make an extra buck. I understand times are tough and everything, but I don't think that that's the best business practice.
No.
So I like Fire Emblem Fates, giving you a little sample of it if you want to go in for more of the DLC, maybe you want to try the maps, and Card feeling like an extension of the game itself is giving you more of the game to play. I don't like it if it gives you more of the game to play by taking some of it out and making the game seem shorter in the beginning.
That's what
I
Breath
don't like
of the Wild
that.
did too.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild I don't think had smart DLC in that way.
It took out hard mode and sold hard mode as DLC.
Hard mode should not have been DLC because that's been a staple of so many Zelda games for a long time.
No, that's just a staple of video games. Like, why would you sell
also
that?
Video games, yeah.
Like,
yeah, and selling it separately, like, yeah, I don't like Nintendo's DLC in that way. Mm-hmm. So I like the fact that they did it right, and I think they did it right in Fire Emblem Fates and with Kart, but I don't like what they did with like Fire Emblem Echoes and like Breath of the Wild. So Travis, what do you think about the DLC for Kart?
For Mario Kart, honestly, I liked it for Mario Kart because with the amount of time that we have invested in that game, I think it's to the point where if we're doing the blindfold challenge on ourselves, if I knew what map I was doing, I could, like, somewhat stay on the track anyway. Because we've just played so much of it. So, like, I really did need those extra maps just to, like, kind of give it more replay value. Because, like, right when the DLCs came out, that's when we started playing it again.
Yeah.
In our room and to begin with. So it's like, I guess it... Because, like, if I remember right, the Mario Kart really wasn't that expensive either. I'm trying to remember
it was like
how
$8
much it was.
a pack.
Yeah, it's not too bad. But, like, Mario Kart, like, the Super Smash Bros, it was a couple bucks per character. That was kind of ridiculous.
Smash Bros was expensive.
I, like, don't even use any of the DLC people because they're either stupid or dumb.
Well, that's one of the things I don't like. I don't like a pay-to-win kind of thing.
Right, because, like, I get it when they first come out, there's always going to be, like, things you didn't think was going to be abused, but then you have to, like, nerf it and tweak it, whatever. I get it. It's going to happen. But, because, like, League of Legends will do that, but then
They do that, like, weekly, dude.
Oh, I know. because like, you'll see that there's an issue and you'll, do an update to fix it. But things like where I start having issues is when, like you said, when a DLC is already available when the game is coming out, because you're like, okay, why isn't it part of the game? You already made it.
Yeah.
So just put it in it. Because, like, I know Battlefront 2, they have already announced that, like, Finn and another character are going to be DLC. But I know that I'm not getting, like, charged extra, so I'm like, okay. So maybe they're waiting for the movie to come out, and then it'll pertain to the movie. And that's the only acceptable thing I can think of to, like, add it afterward, is if, like, especially for something like Star Wars, where it's pertaining to, like, a movie that just came out, so then you just designed it for that.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to say this too. So I guess Mike, some of my main concerns, and also Travis, I guess, with DLC, I don't think it's necessarily evil, but one of the reasons that I don't like it as much is, so I like it when it doesn't have to, like, involve any broken strategy or anything that's, like, necessary to, like, beat a game. Like, it's not like, the reason why I don't like it is it kind of incentivizes a couple of different systems. One of them is pay to win, and I definitely don't like that, because I can tell you about all the times about, like, Pat explaining to me about how many people, because Pat got 2K recently, how when he got 2K, there's so many people that paid, like, the extra, like, $100 in the game itself just to start off overpowered as hell, so they don't have to go through the grinding, and it's just like, I think that's stupid.
I read about 2K. If you want to buy everything in that game and, like, 100% it all, it's $500.
Yeah, and that's just ridiculous. But there's people that are going to do it. There's certain people that don't really only play those kinds of games too, which I find it fun. I find it fun to play. But when you have a system like DLC like that where it's pay to win, I think that's stupid. And at the same time, I don't like what happens with the certain people, like what Travis said, with the kind of day one DLC, like, that sounds suspicious, especially if you're charging for it. So if it ever sets a precedent, or if it ever seems like a pay to win system, or like it should have been included in the game itself, I have issues with that. If it's something like Kart and Smash Bros, like, again, I don't think Smash Bros did it really that much right either, but if it's like down the road and it's trying to give you an extension of the game to play, I like that. Yeah, I think that that's okay, and it's giving you more of the game to play.
Right. I will say 2K, FIFA, and Madden are the biggest culprits of that, and two of those games are made by EA. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think most games do that. I think it's mostly EA games that do that, because EA likes to, grub for money. Because, like, most DLCs, most DLCs aren't pay to win that I've seen. Like in Fallout, now that I know what you're more talking about, Fallout does not do that.
Fallout doesn't do that, but the main game suffers.
Yeah, no, but I don't know. I don't really think it does in those games, but that was a topic we already talked about. But as far as the pay to win goes, because I'm even looking at, like, Resident Evil with the extra modes they had, none of them offered, like, something overpowered. That's mostly, like, multiplayer games, like League of Legends. I could see doing that. I don't know if they do, but League of Legends,
every single time a new champion comes out, there's going to be another update within a week because they have to change him.
Right.
It's awful.
But, like, I don't
so
think
bad.
And, like, Call of Duty, as bad as they are, they don't even really do that either. Where, like, you can pay to get the super-powered gun. Most of the guns are available right away. Yeah, so, like, most games don't do pay to win, as far as I've seen. I think that's limited to the sports games, and it's really limited to EA, I would say more specifically, because they just want to get money however they can.
Fighting games kind of have it, too, and to an extent.
But even fighting games, like when I look at Soul Calibur's DLC, I never really noticed that as much, because most of the characters for DLC in Soul Calibur were free. So most of their DLC was like extra maps or things like that.
I guess I would disagree then. I guess in the case of Smash Bros, though, because, like, you don't see the meta adjust as much, and they haven't been able, again, as Travis said, to be tweaked.
Smash Bros
to actually fit the actual meta. Didn't actually do that. So those characters who haven't been seen as much and already have, like, these broken things just stay where they are, which, again, they're still fun to play, but giving the precedent of, like, you can pay this money to try to win, it's just like, no, I'm sorry, that's dumb. I don't think that that's how it actually should be working.
Well, because like some people, because like I know Pat was super excited about Bayonetta before, like, we even knew how overpowered she was going to be, just because he liked the Bayonetta character.
He liked the character, and then once he played her for a little while, he's just like, I hate her. I actually hate her.
Right, because cancer.
Yeah, you don't want to get cancer while playing a fighting game.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's true. No,
because like all fighting games will always have that tier list where some people are unbeatable. Because like Melee has Fox, who's a god, and like that's not DLC. It's just in the fighting game realm.
The fighting games when you introduce DLC, the meta really doesn't have time to adjust to them being like a normal character in there.
Right.
So it shifts to people who don't know about that character, and then that character becomes more viable.
Right. So I mean, because like now that it hasn't really come out with any more DLC, right? For a while now.
There was a patch, but the patch included like amiibo functionality or something like that.
Whatever.
But that's.
So, like, now that the time has, like, been able to, like... I think everyone knows that Corrin has some pretty sick moves. So now you kind of know how to fight against him, her, depending on the skin. So, like, the meta will, like... It's gradually, like, making sense of it.
That's why I feel like it's hard to call that pay to win. Because it's, like, it's not pay to win. You're not getting, like... they were kind of overpowered, but they're not like, oh, if you play as, Cloud, you're going to win every single time. It's like, it's possible to beat them. It's just you haven't, necessarily learned how to beat these characters. Because a lot of the DLC characters in Smash Bros. Are not that good. So it's clear, like,
What?
Sorry.
You're wrong there. Bayonetta and Cloud are just...
No, I said some of them. I didn't say all of them. I'm talking more about, Roy and stuff.
Oh no, Roy's garbage. I love Roy. He's garbage.
So like, I don't think their intention was let's put out
Lucas?
DLC characters that are all amazing.
How good he is.
Lucas is mid tier. He's around the middle.
So there you go.
So that's my point. Like the DLC is very like some of them are obviously going to be top tier, and some of them are bottom tier. I don't think.
Well, I feel like some of them just weren't balanced well and didn't have like the tweaks to actually make them like with the rest of the cast to make a lot more people.
But that's why I don't think that's why I wouldn't call that pay to win. I think that was just Nintendo not doing a good job of balancing their characters. But I don't think that has anything to do with DLC. It could have been free. The problem would have been the same.
Right.
Well, the reason I say that it's with DLC though is because the characters would have gone through continuous tweaking and continuous like adjusting if they were actually introduced in the beginning of the game. But because these characters have only been tweaked like once or twice, there's still stuff that I feel like should have been tweaked out that have not been tweaked out.
Right, but isn't that still Nintendo's problem for not like maintaining it?
That's still Nintendo's problem, but it still comes with the fact that they were DLC characters.
Well, I know, but like they still have the opportunity to still set updates.
Yeah, but they decided they don't care. They're just going to move on to another one at this point.
Right. So so that's not even the DLC problem anymore. It's going back to Nintendo being lazy on it because they're focusing on the Switch and other things.
We'll agree to disagree on that then.
Well, because then like other fighting games like Mortal Kombat or what's it called, Killer Instinct, implement new characters like that with like free DLC normally, but they do it great. Like there's no problems with the meta as far as I've seen. I've never seen people like complain and say it's unbalanced.
Well, then you'd have to like go to like the actual communities themselves and actually see, because there's different issues with the competitive fighting games for other ones like Street Fighter and whatnot. Like those are different communities altogether that we don't even know about. We just have a couple of nerds in Smash Bros in our group. That's really it.
No, but I mean, like from what I've like seen people talk about, like I think this complaint is something that I've seen is more limited to Smash Brothers, as far as like the meta being unbalanced with bringing in DLC characters. The meta is unbalanced in every game. I just think with games like Street Fighter, they're a little more lenient with it. Smash Bros seems to be very. I think the community as a whole is a lot more just uptight than other fighting games in that regard.
Calling people out, man. That's ballsy.
Hey, well, it's not a bad thing, but I think that's why those things get more noticeable, I don't think it's bad to be super, like, into and uptight about something, That's how people get good at stuff. But I think that's why they notice the little things like that.
I think the issue with that is the fact that Smash Bros. Is probably one of the more popular of the fighting games, too. So I think because, like, it's not as... they didn't really start off with as big of a cast as like, the other people did. And then after playing it for multiple years, and again when a game, I'm sorry, this is turned into basically us talking about Melee, but when you talk about Melee, when you have a game out for so long, that honestly we can't really complain about the fact that you can patch people, because there isn't a game before that was even like it was even a thing that you could actually like have as a possibility, like an actual update for the actual system itself. Right. So it's like, again, when you release like N64 games and like GameCube games, whatever you sent out, that's what they got. Like there's no question of DLC possible in there. And when you have something established for such a long time where you can't change it, it's going to get established. And so that's why I think that's why, like, with a platform like that, I think that's one of the why we don't really hear people that are really for, like, when you see a meta as established as that, that's why it's basically hard in stone like that. That's why I think that you feel like it's more upside, which I would agree that they're very more focused on this character is good and this character is bad. It's because the game's been out so long, they've already known that.
Well, that's why
with the newest Smash Bros. That come out, it's like you can't really tell yet.
That's why I'm interested, because that even goes beyond DLC. It almost sounds like you're saying they shouldn't add new things in the game, period. You know, like, this is how the game came out. Just focus on fixing that, and don't, like, add in extra characters and stuff, you know? Which, hey, if that's your stance, I see your point, you know, but...
I can kind of see that, but I'm both for and against that. So I guess that's kind of... That might be going into a different discussion, because I'm curious about that point, though, because then that would be interesting. Because if... I'll have to think about that. Because immediately off the top of my head, I'm thinking I would say no, but at the same time, that's a lot of the games that I like, that's how they just came. So, I mean, like...
Right.
I think that's kind of hard to do nowadays, because games might be... It's a lot easier to find glitches in games nowadays, and games want to be more perfect and a lot less glitchless, so they can't be taken advantage of, especially if it's in a competitive scene. So, without the opportunity to give updates, I feel like that would be very lacking of a game. And even games that probably don't have... Games that aren't really too complicated compared to the other ones, like Sonic Mania, still needs to have updates, because people will find the broken strategies and whatnot. So, I guess in this day and age, it's... I don't know what you're going to edit out and what you're going to keep, Mike, but sorry. I think in this day and age, it's basically, you can't do that. I think you have to have the opportunity to give updates and give, like, added content. I think you have to nowadays.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been talking for a while, so I don't want to go on for too long, but I do want to change it a little bit to what we were talking about before, is that we're saying all this, but this is also one specific type of DLC, and I think since you mostly play, like, Nintendo games, I think, because Nintendo doesn't have a lot of the other type of DLC, it's mostly just adding characters and maps and stuff, but I think the beauty of DLC is, like, what I see in games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, or even, like, Resident Evil 7 did a good job, where, like, their extra game modes was like a card game. Like, there was, like, a 21, you play blackjack, basically, is one of their DLCs, which I think is cool, because it's not the main game. So if you want that, you can pay for it, but if you don't want it, you don't have to buy it, you know? Like, it's not a part of your game. So I think stuff like that is really cool. And I think that's what the majority of DLC is like. Like, with fighting games, we can argue, like, okay, adding characters can be excessive and it can be costly. But I think most games seem to use DLC to, like, okay, here's an extra little thing that we wanted to add that wasn't in time for the game, you know? And if you want it, you can pay for it. It's, you know, extra bonus stuff that has nothing to do with the main story, or you can pass on it. So I think that's why I like DLC, is you can take a game and then add on to it. Now, do companies abuse it? Absolutely. Look at, like, Battlefront, you know?
Right.
But if it's not abused, I think it's a great system.
But I also have
Go ahead.
this question where a lot of games now are even, like, being released without being completed even a little bit. Because, like, Battlefront obviously wasn't, in my opinion, a completed game because it had freaking nothing. But it then charged it, so it pretended like it was full. But then there was games like when Splatoon first came out, it had, like, nothing. But then, like, it constantly gave more and more things, like, every week, month, whatever. So then, like, it became its complete game. Yeah. But, like, some games don't even, like, really give those updates. So you bought this game because you heard it was going to give all this DLC for free, but then it never really did anything. You're like, well, now I have this crappy freaking game.
Right.
So it sucks sometimes.
Yeah, well, a good example of that is, like, No Man's Sky.
Well, yeah, so I guess for that, it goes back to what I was saying, that it definitely can't have like, people think that you definitely intentionally left stuff out of the actual game itself to try to pad other things in there. So if it's like, again, so the issue that I guess I'll say with the DLC is that it still operates on what I've heard it as called the Razor Blade model, which the Razor Blade model works. We've seen it before. Literally, video game consoles are based on that. You pay for the Razor to use the Razor Blades. You can't really use the Razor Blades without that. So you can't use the video game without the console itself, which is why we buy the console. So it's literally the Razor Blade model in an actual game itself. It's proven to work, and it does work. But it's just to the extent of you still need to get a game with it, because if it starts to become you need the game to play it on the console, to play it on to actually play just the DLC itself, I think that's excessive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think most games are at that point. Like, you know, the examples I keep going back to are like Resident Evil and Fallout. They don't do that at all. You don't need the DLC at all. They're just extra things. And there's very few games I think that do that. But yeah, if it gets to that point, I do think that'd be a problem. I just don't think we're at that point. Battlefront was very, very close to that point. But most companies don't do that.
No, I'm absolutely with you, Mike. If DLC's done right, it's awesome. But the issue is that there's just so many cases where, like, especially when Nintendo's trying to do DLC, it sucks. Yeah. And or at least the first couple attempts that they had with like the Switch is not good. And there are still glaring examples of it. But since it's proven to work, they're just gonna keep doing it.
For sure.
And so I don't like that direction that those games are going. But you know, that's just one person's opinion. Certain people might like the fact that they don't have to grind as much and they just want to get a lot better at the game. So it's just a difference of opinion.
No, I get that. That makes sense.
Yep. So yeah. Sorry, that was way long, and I don't know what we're gonna keep, but we'll see. So we'll probably be editing this a lot, but either way, I hope you like that discussion. And we do want to definitely hear your thoughts on it, because I know that me and Mike are kind of different on where we see DLC. And Travis, I don't know, he's kind of
I'm in the neutral zone, because I'm always the neutral zone, and you guys are always the polar opposites.
Yay.
Yay. Love you,
wow, we're
Mike.
back to our original podcast. Oh, this is nice.
Isn't it crazy?
Full circle.
Yep.
But yeah, so either way, thank you for joining us. Again, tell us what you want to hear in the comment section below. Podcast ideas, topics, comments about DLC, maybe a good DLC that was good or bad. Tell us if we're wrong. Tell us if we're right. Tell us you love popcorn.
And please, if you have any other podcast ideas for us, we are running out of ideas for ourselves because we're not that creative of people.
Yes.
I have a list of at least 10.
That's still, I mean, that's what, 2-3 sessions?
Nah, you're right.
True.
We'll always take more. Bye, everyone.
Bye.